I'm Jana, the little sister.
And I'm Jeff, her big brother. Welcome to Sibling Rivalry, a podcast about our favorite sport, baseball.
This week on Sibling Rivalry Baseball, we got nothing.
Well, we do know that Rob Manfred is ready for summer because he's wearing his flip-flops. And now it's time for a quick look at the SRBB headline.
With reports of positive tests within the Phillies, Blue Jays, Yankees, and Angels organizations, it has led to the full shutdown of all Florida and Arizona team facilities.
The 1986 Mets take down the 2001 Mariners to grab the Dream Bracket 2 tournament crown.
Albert Pujols stepped up to pay the salaries of Angels employees laid off in the Dominican Republic.
And the Dodgers signed their first-round draft pick, Bobby Miller, the fifth-round pick, Gavin Stone, while the Angels signed their fifth-round pick, Adam Seminaris. And that's it for this week's SRBB headlines. Remember, you can find these and past weeks all on our website, siblingrivalrybb.com. Remember to subscribe and rate us wherever you listen to our podcast. Welcome to the 14th episode of Sibling Rivalry Baseball Podcast. And we got nothing. We've been talking about everything that we could. We're on the proposal roller coaster. One week looks like there's a good proposal and one side likes it, the other doesn't like it. And we've talked about this. I think the other day, Jana, you said, should we keep continuing to beat the dead horse? And I think we decided no. Every time that there's something new, we're like that thing. We get the news. We're like, oh, baseball's going to start next year because it's not going to happen next week, at least unless something changes.
Unless something changes. Yeah, we do production meetings every Friday, and every Friday we are hopeful, and every Friday our balloon is deflated.
Or because we figure, well, on Friday, this is going on. Maybe before we record, if something changes, we'll update when that happens. And normally, from Friday to when we record, nothing happens or 6 things happen that equate to nothing happening. And sometimes it's actually gone backward from we're almost back to the beginning of when all this started.
Right. We were talking about movies that you can, it doesn't matter what part of the movie it is, you want to stop and you watch it. This is a movie I don't want to watch anymore. It's either it didn't happen or it's happening and then I'm going to watch it. But I'll be reserved about it.
There's those movies that you see one time, great movie, but I never need to see it a second time. It's not one of those that I need to watch over and over again. We were talking about The Fugitive. Every time, doesn't matter where it's at. It could be towards the end of the movie. I stop and watch the last 5 minutes. I thought you didn't care. I don't, but don't tell anybody. It doesn't matter. Those are those little things, other movies that we've talked about where you just get to that point with it and I'm just going to watch it. I don't care. Yeah. This one, not it. Earlier, I didn't know that I'd ever really need to watch Once Upon a Time in Hollywood again. I mean, great movie, but I didn't know if I needed to watch it. I caught it about midway through and I was locked in again. So it's become a movie now. And this is only the first time I've rewatched it since I saw it originally in the theater.
Yeah, we have that movie Over the Top with Sylvester Stallone. That one, all of us can, in my household, stop. It doesn't matter. We know what's going to happen. We love the Kenny Loggins theme song. I mean, his theme songs were in every 80s movies.
I think it was requirement. It was contractual.
Maybe so. And the theme song is, at least the title, could help MLB and the Players Association meet me halfway.
Yes.
Not across the sky, across the field. Meet me halfway.
Let's just meet at the mound, at the plate, with our lineup cards.
Or Rob Manfred and Tony Clark at the plate with the arm wrestling apparatus the table
set up, and isn't there like a handle on one side and you're
yes.
I like it.
Have their hat on, and which one is going to go over the top?
I'm with you. I think that would be good. Maybe it's time to change from these tactics. Let's apply some of the things we were talking about for the season. Use Survivor Baseball or Thunderdome. Let's do it to the negotiations now.
Yes, I think it applies.
Let's have some sort of a decathlon of event with the finale being that, or make it like we talked about it a few weeks ago, the Battle of the Network Stars.
Yeah.
The Battle of the Baseball Negotiator.
That would be excellent.
They could have tug of war. We could do like the or even like do the what was it, Gladiator? Remember the Gladiators TV show? And they could go and do all the. Or now The Rock has Titan, and they could do the Titans thing where they have to do the same type of setup.
Yeah, that would work. Some kind of obstacle course. They have to get through it. Right? That'd be excellent.
Maybe a swim meet. They swim down and back or whatever that is, a 50 meter or 100 meter swim, and do it in. They have to do the 4 where they have to do each stroke. Whoever comes out on top, they win that one, and whoever wins.
Yeah,
that's the season we get, is based off of. So if Tony Clark wins, boom, Rob Manfred wins. Sorry, if Rob Manfred wins, boom, the owners get their way.
Now that is something I would watch. I think that'd be excellent.
I think so too.
And I just want to throw in here that I just have noticed that I've used the word excellent probably 3 times so far. So for the word of the day, excellent.
Excellent. And that's spelled without an E.
Yes. So it'd be like on Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse where they had the word of the day, and whenever somebody said it, everybody gets excited. So now if I say excellent, or if you say it, we both have to get excited.
I like it. Sounds good. I was just looking at Tony Clark's. I mean, he had a fair career, 15-year career in the major leagues. He was a .262 career hitter, batted over 300 one year, 2005 with the Diamondbacks.
He would be the favorite over Manfred.
I think so. Plus, he's like, 6'8", went tall, and he's 48. I don't know how old Manfred is, but yeah, I think so. I mean, you can have the whole negotiating teams, but see, even then, if you do the union, like the union, their executive committee is mostly players. I don't see that being the case with the owners.
No.
I think it works more for the players, which is fine with me.
Well, speaking of players too, whenever we talk about the Dodgers, and we've talked about Joc Pederson in the past, and I always have to refrain from calling Joc Jocelyn, because to us, Joc Pederson is Jocelyn.
And it's not
it's
meant
really
to be
hard.
A negative thing.
No, we were texting during a game one night, and my phone auto-corrected Joc to Jocelyn.
I think what happened, he hit a home run or a double or something like that. And we'll do that when we're watching a game. One of us will text the other one. So like Max or Cody hit a home run, or Joc, and we'll just put their name and then exclamation to show that. And that one time, I was like, who?
Joc Pederson will always be affectionately known to us as Jocelyn. And when we went to opening day and he came to the plate, we were like, come on, Jocelyn, let's go. And I'm sure there were people
like
maybe looking at us. Yeah. It's like when we went that first game in 1987, and I love Steve Sax. He's my favorite Dodger, number 3. And I called him Sweetie Stevie. That was his nickname. And I remember rooting for him, and I got chuckles and laughs, but it didn't deter me. I still love Sweetie Stevie.
Sweetie Stevie. We expected that things like that, like Jocelyn, were going to come out because we thought we'd be talking about games of the Dodgers and the Angels and others, but we were going to primarily focus on our favorite teams. So we thought like some of the little names that we had or things that we said about different players between us would come out. And now we're 14 weeks without baseball, and we just figured, well, now's the time.
Let's
We might
let
as
it.
well
Our
share.
secrets are out.
Right. We just, you know what? We always have it, even though we don't call them that, like when we open up into a segment, we always have a name for it. And this one, we were just talking about it, like, and I have a little sheet I made up so that way I know what segment that we called it. And we just called this segment Open Season. Sometimes it'd be like in the past, Dodger segment. Like last week, it was Draft History, 5-round draft, What Ifs, Angels Dodgers drafts. And we name them. And this one was just Open Season and the segment description, free for all. You're just going to talk about whatever we talk about.
That's it. And during our meeting, it took us an hour and a half to figure that out.
We were on the phone for almost 2 full hours. And there's always a time, like today, before we started recording, we must have talked for almost an hour before we really got to the point that we were ready to start. We got off on a different subject, and which isn't unusual. Usually we start faster. Today we couldn't even do that. And then production meeting really probably could be, if we got right to it and did it, we'd have quick production meetings.
Yeah, but we talk a lot.
Yeah.
We're talkers.
Well, it's because I'm isolated at home and I don't have anybody to talk to. So you're it. I talk to you. You're the only person outside that. And it's a busy time at school for Blanca. That's my wife. She's busy because it's the end of the school year and all the stuff to wrap it up so you can get to the next school year or whatever. So she's not talking to me. The dogs only come over and see me when they want something and scratch my head, give me a treat. So I force you to listen. I really sound pathetic right about now, don't I? Actually, I'm happy because I'm enjoying this whole quarantine, stay safe at home kind of thing. I found that I never thought I really liked people that much anyway. And I found that while I've been more isolated, it's true. I don't like people for the most part. I don't like to be around. I don't want to have those interactions and stuff.
So you are not of the song People Who Need People.
No.
That it does not describe you.
No. I think that, we were talking about this earlier. There's things that I think we've learned through isolation, quarantine, whatever you want to call it, is that there's a lot of people out there that could have been working from home this whole time that were not allowed to because they're like, no, you can't work from home. It's not possible. And then only to find out that, yes, it's very possible. And the other thing we found out is all these people who said they could absolutely spend a month in a cabin with fully isolated with no internet or phone lied.
A lot of people lied about that.
They absolutely could not do it for $1 million. They couldn't do it for $1. It doesn't matter. They couldn't do it for 10 million. They would go stir crazy within the first week because they didn't have anything. Me? Bye.
Could read a lot, depending on where it's at, go hiking.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. There's a lot of things to do.
There are.
Why
do I totally do it?
When you read this, and I get it, there are people who absolutely positively need human interaction. Don't get me wrong. I don't have an issue with interaction. I'm courteous to people. I just find that the best way to avoid conflict is not to be around people. Not that I even have conflict.
Best way. That is the best way.
Frank Costanza said, "Serenity now," and I know how to get it. You can't just say it and have it, which I think he knew. If you're just not around people, serenity now just comes.
It does. And when you just say serenity now, instead of yelling it like Frank Costanza did, it probably helps. So also the sad thing is I don't know, summer plans, a lot of summer plans have been put on hold. And thinking of I was thinking of Frank Costanza, thinking of George Costanza, this was the summer of George. And now it's not.
No. Unfortunately. The summer of George. Maybe we should take a moment, bow our heads, silence for no
Moment of silence.
Moment of silence for no Summer of George. All right, and away we go.
I do have a funny story that goes, I was thinking of a song. So I was driving out to the main road, and I live on a gravel road, and I'm drive real slow on the gravel road, and I was listening to 80s on 8.
Is that a country song? I drive real slow on the gravel road?
It could be. I think I might have to put that one together. And the song The Rose by Bette Midler came on. And there's that one part where it's just like a single piano key. You know, I don't know which one, but it's that note. And I'm like slowing down and I'm thinking something's wrong with my car. And the whole time it was the Rose. It was the Rose. That was what's wrong. So I had to turn the station to the Bruce Springsteen channel or something.
Change it to the 90s so you could have Every Rose Has Its Thorn?
Yeah. Oh, I should have. I should have changed it to 90s on 9. I didn't.
Oh, yeah. Not, well, if you'd have gone to, when you went into Bruce, was it Thunder Road?
No. I don't remember what it was. Probably it was probably like, what's that street? The Freeze Out.
Oh, well, 10th Avenue.
10th Avenue. Yeah. And I wasn't on 10th Avenue. So,
you know, we live in such different places. I mean, where I live is actually in, I'm 2 blocks from the city of Los Angeles, but it's one of the neighborhoods of Los Angeles. Not like from downtown, I'm about 15 miles from downtown LA. And I live right below a freeway. And everything's paved. I don't have to take the gravel road anywhere.
I know.
You're in a Jeff Foxworthy joke. Turn off the paved road.
Yep, go on the gravel road.
Your neighborhood is really a nice neighborhood. It's like a little subdivision. It's almost like in some areas would almost be like a gated community as far as like if you went, but it's like you turn off and then you're on a dirt road and it's dirt gravel type road. It's a fairly well maintained road. I'm assuming you guys pay homeowners dues or something for that. That
is the only thing that we pay for is to maintain our road. We don't have a pool or community center. It's just to maintain our road.
And there's space for those 2 things out there as well.
There are. So I am on the board of my HOA, so maybe I should push for that.
What is there? Of 13 houses?
No, I don't think there's more than that. We've actually had 2 houses that were just built, so at the top of the circle.
You know what? I've never been beyond your house on the circle because you're when you come in, you're to the left of the circle on the first house. And I've never gone beyond. I have no idea what the rest of your circle looks like, other than what I can see from your house.
Yeah, and you are surrounded by mountains. I am surrounded by mountains.
Yeah, you have more of a deserty feel than I do.
Definitely. But it is weird when you go to southeastern Utah, where my husband is from, and you say, "Man, it's like it's humid here." Like we got a problem. And my youngest has very curly hair like I do. He was actually really liking being in the Utah humidity because it was making his hair fluffy.
Fluffy. Nice.
Fluffy. Yeah, so open season, free for all. I like to drink Dr. Pepper. That's my main go-to drink, if you ever wondered.
And I'm of the diet Dr. Pepper variety. I left regular Dr. Pepper years ago. Dr. Pepper's always been, it's like almost a family thing. Now we've drank other things. We used to drink a lot of RC Cola.
Yes, which our uncle says is named after him.
Right. RC.
RC.
That's his initials. Dad was a Pepsi guy for some reason.
Yeah, I never could figure that out. That's probably the one thing, if you look at your dad and you love your dad, and like, oh, he was so great, but he drank Pepsi.
My dad was a flawed individual. Why is that? He drank Pepsi.
Our grandpa, our dad's dad, he was a Mountain Dew man.
Right. Yeah, that's true. There's soda's always been that thing, the Dr. Pepper. Mom's the Dr. Pepper person, but yeah, I didn't go to Diet Dr. Pepper till they changed it. Because at one time, Diet Dr. Pepper was like drinking Dr. Pepper. Diet. It was just horrible. And then they changed it, and now it's closer to drinking like a regular Dr. Pepper. It's kind of creamy compared to like Diet Coke, which is more Diet Coke.
Acid.
I'll drink Diet Coke, but well, that's what I like about it. Boom. It just hits you. It's not, smooth and creamy. It's, so it's just.
That is, yes, that's a popular drink in our house, Diet Coke, with one person, with my husband. He has to have it in the morning. And then he stands there just like Chevy Chase in Christmas Vacation when he's drinking the eggnog. And he's like, oh, that's good. That's good.
Well, I always take grief from people like in the mornings if I go out. And a lot of times I'll have water. Sometimes I'll just have regular unsweetened iced tea. But generally, if I go out to breakfast, especially if it's just like a fast food kind of place, I'll have a Diet Coke or a Diet Dr. Pepper. And people will be like, what are you drinking soda for? I'm like, well, you're drinking coffee.
Yeah, what's the difference?
Exactly. I don't get it. What is the difference?
I don't know. I think in segment, we need to do a SRBB investigative report. What is the difference?
Well, if we keep going
and coffee.
If we keep going the way it is, we may just need to call this SRBB podcast and then come up with different letters for SRBB, sibling rivalry, breakfast and beverages.
Oh, perfect.
Something like that, because baseball stuff, I mean, we could sit around. We could go back and talk about past games. We could talk about our favorite players. I mean, I've listened to other podcasts and they're doing that. They're talking about specific players, how they pitch, specific players and games. I know that the Too Much Podtar guys did the whole draft thing, and they went through and draft picks and
that's ambitious.
Analyzed it. They did a pre-draft. Keith Law from The Athletic had his mock drafts like they do with the NFL and that. And this year, I guess it was easier to do draft analysis because it was only going to be 5 rounds. It wasn't like 62 rounds of, or 40 rounds is what it is. But I was thinking 62 because of Mike Piazza.
Oh, right. And, talking about watching the classic games, and I was actually watching, it wasn't a classic game. It was a show about voices of the game, about Vin Scully. And they were showing calls that he made. One of the calls, which was interesting to me, was, when Hank Aaron hit his 715th home run in Atlanta, they played the Dodgers.
Yep.
And so Vin Scully was there, but he was there as the Dodgers broadcaster, and that game was televised nationally. But it's Vin Scully's call that is the most memorable. And I knew what was going to happen. I knew that Hank Aaron had hit 715 home runs, but when he hits it and he's rounding the bases and then his mom's hugging him and I'm just getting teary-eyed. And this happened, I was a month old, I think.
Just a little over a month old because it was mid-April.
Yeah. And then also they, of course, showed the call from the 1988 World Series Game 1, which I remember exactly where I was, what I was doing. I was babysitting that night, and the kids were in bed, and because it's late, because I was in Central Time Zone, and I knew what was going to happen, but you still get that emotion and like, oh, when he hits the ball, but then it rolls foul and you're like, oh yes, he's still, you know it's going to happen.
Well, and you're worried too, because I've watched that 2 or 3 times. You're worried that he's going to hit something that he's going to have to run out.
Yes.
And he can't run. It took all he had just to get around there. He never played another game in that World Series.
Right.
I think he was on the bench available one time, but everybody knew he had done the one thing he had to do.
Yeah, and Vince Scully actually, thinking about it, he had before that, they were panning the dugout. And you see, Mike Scioscia, Oral Hershiser, and they're all sitting there biting their nails. And he's like, you don't see him. And he wasn't announced before the game. He was in the clubhouse, and he heard Vin Scully say, yeah, you won't see Kirk Gibson tonight. And that was the fire. He was like heck, you're not going to see me. And now it's legend.
I think that makes it. Oh yeah, absolutely. I think that's the thing. When you've been written off by Vin Scully, at that point you'd almost say, okay, I guess I'll just take my shoes off and start getting ready to go home. I don't need to. No,
he got a bat, threw those ice packs off, and went and started warming up, and then of course hit the home run off of Dennis Eckersley, who had given up 5 home runs the whole season.
Oh yeah, no, and Eck is like one of those, he's a legendary player in his own right. The other day, last week we were talking about draft picks and where Hall of Famers who wouldn't have been drafted if it had always been 5 rounds, and Eckersley wasn't one of those. But thinking about Eck, it was Goose Gossage that just made me think about it. Goose. I was watching a video roll through of him. I didn't realize he played for 15 of the 30 teams in Major League Baseball. I mean, every time they showed something different, he didn't play for that many, but he played for, let me look it up, but he played for a lot of different teams. And I always remember him, with the Yankees. I know he was a White Sox. Who else did he play for? But when you think of the Padres, but when you think of him in his just his heyday, you think of him as a Yankee. At least I do.
Yeah, I think that's right.
I think about him when I thought about that. Then you think about Dennis Eckersley. And Dennis Eckersley is another one of those guys who was just a great player, but he played for a lot of teams. Yeah, here we go. So Goose started his career with the White Sox in 72. I don't remember what year it was that he was drafted, but he was drafted by the Sox, comes up, plays for the Sox, goes to the Pirates. Then with the Yankees from 78 to 83, they won the series. So he wasn't there for 77, but he was there for 78. They were in the series against the Dodgers in 81. Then he goes to the Padres. Then he's with the Cubs for a year, the Giants for a year, back to the Yankees for a year. Then he plays in Japan. Then he comes back and plays for the Rangers. That was one that surprised me when I saw that, because I don't remember him playing for the Rangers. Then he was with the A's for a couple of years. And then he ended up in Seattle. That's where he ended in 1994. So he had a long career, over 20 years. But it's weird to think about, here's a guy who's a Hall of Famer, is all that. You don't think about how many teams he ended up playing for. And then too, that you would think that somebody that played with that many teams was not a Hall of Famer. He was a journeyman who was just good enough to come in. He's like Fernando Rodney. Fernando Rodney is a guy who sometimes you would think he's the greatest relief pitcher ever, but mostly you don't.
I just look at Fernando Rodney's hat and want to straighten it.
At least his hat is better than Bobby Miller's hat or Cody Bellinger's hat.
That's true. They're going to be twins, I think. They both wear their hats very similar.
All right, so Eckersley with the Indians is where he came up. Then he went to the Red Sox. He was there for a while. Then the Cubs. Then the A's, and he was with the A's from 87 to 95. Part of the losing 88 team and the winning 89 team. And then he was with the Cardinals and ended up with the Red Sox. But that's a lot of different teams, too, for a guy who was a 6-time All-Star. He was the AL MVP in 1992, Cy Young Award winner in 92.
When you think about, I guess, the Hall of Famer, you do think of the one team that they're with the one team for an extended period of time. And if they were with another team, it was a short period, and then they got to their main team, and that's where they were. But yeah, it's interesting to see that he was with so many. I think he works for the Red Sox now.
Yeah, I believe so too. Thinking about the '89 World Series, which was the Bay Area series, the Giants, and of course, the biggest thing that happened that year,
the earthquake.
So I was in the Air Force at the time and had gone out on a trip that day. And from where we were here in Southern California, we had two different trips. We mostly went to the Pacific when we went out overseas. And we would leave and we'd go up to Northern California to Travis Air Force Base. And then either we'd go to Hawaii or maybe we'd go up to Alaska, sometimes up to Washington. But we'd almost always stop in at Travis because that's kind of like a hub, for lack of a better term. You know, everything kind of comes in there and then you pick it up from there to take it out. Either coming in or going out, you'd pick it up there and take it to wherever. So we land at Travis, we do our things, everything's fine. No big deal. It's a nice day out. We fly up, we land at Elmendorf Air Force Base in Anchorage, Alaska. We get off the plane, we're getting everything, we're going to get on a crew bus to go in and because we're staying the night there. And the crew bus driver, I don't know if he knew where we were coming from or asked us where we're coming from. We said, oh yeah, we're from down at Norton in California. And he goes, oh, cool, you know. And driving on, and we asked, because it was game one, do you know what the score is of the game? And he goes, oh, no, game was postponed for an earthquake. And we all laughed because we think he's joking with us. We're from California. It's earthquake land, right? He goes, no, I'm serious. So we get into billeting, which is like the base hotel, and they've got the TV on, and they're there talking. I think NBC had the World Series that year, I think. And so they're talking about it. Of course, everybody's out on the field and, you know, whatever they were showing. And we were like, oh my goodness, he wasn't lying. It really was.
Yeah, I remember watching from the living room in southwestern Oklahoma. I think I was doing homework while I was watching. And next thing you know, there were some words said. And you saw, but you at the beginning, before they even knew what was going on, it was shaking. I mean, like the picture was kind of shaky. And then I think they realized, and then, of course, how bad it was. It wasn't just one of those, you know, like you do, like you said, in California, sometimes you have those earthquakes, 3 point.
Well, we have
whatever
some level of earthquake here every day.
Right.
But mostly they're just so small you don't notice.
Mm-hmm.
Or does anybody notice? If you don't go and look at like the seismology website from Caltech, you wouldn't even know.
It's one of those things that's interesting. We spent time growing up in Southern California, and I was little, but I remember having those type of earthquakes where, you know, I remember, why was the bed shaking this morning? Oh, there was an earthquake. And that was the attitude. You know, like, yeah, that's good. And we knew what to do because we had earthquake drills at school. But when you have an earthquake somewhere else where they're not used to it, it's total chaos. The world is coming to an end. They're going to be swallowed into the ground.
The apocalypse is upon us.
Yes.
Well, in San Francisco, they knew it, but I mean, it was big. I mean, the whole freeway collapsed.
Yeah, that's scary.
I remember seeing that later, going up there and being around, and then later even seeing where the freeway used to be. So yeah, I mean that was a scary thing, but that will definitely be the year before the earthquake was Kirk Gibson. The next year, the A's weren't able to overcome earthquake Gibson. They were able to overcome the quake of '89.
Yes, to win it all.
Like we said, we named segment for our own personal use. This one started out as Crazy Odd or Stupid Facts, also known as Out of Left Field. We knew we needed to make sure we threw some baseball in today, and we thought, let's have some fun. This game is fun. Isn't that what Bull Durham, isn't that what Crash Davis said? This game is fun. Have some fun. You throw the ball, you hit the ball, you catch the ball. So in the spirit of the fun of baseball, or maybe just because we wanted to find some odd or weird stats, and some maybe be more strange or odd than others, but we figured this would be the direction to take. So what you got?
So my first one actually involves a Japanese team, the Hanshin Tigers, or Hanshin, probably Tigers. I'm sure I'm butchering that. They're believed to be cursed by KFC founder Colonel Sanders.
I could see that, yeah.
Because when they were celebrating their team's victory in 1985, there was a statue of Colonel Sanders, and the fans were very exuberant, and they threw it in the river.
Wow. Well, okay, my first question isn't why did they throw the statue in the river? Because I get why that happened, because it didn't matter what the statue was of, because they were excited.
Yes.
My question is, why did they have a statue of Harlan Sanders?
Well, it was, I don't know. That I was thinking that there was a KFC near the stadium, and they
just had that statue instead of like a big chicken or something. And they do things like that in Japan, where they'll have a statue or they'll have something like a big chicken or something. Just they're very visual as far as like advertising and things goes. So
yeah, so the Colonel's anger is supposedly it placed a curse upon the Tigers. They won in 1985. Some fans believed that they would never win another Japan series until that statue was recovered. They've appeared in the Japan series 3 times. They lost in 03, 05, and in 2014. Now, the top half of the statue, excluding his left hand, was finally recovered on March 10th of 09, and the bottom half and the right hand shortly after, when they were putting in a new boardwalk. So construction workers found it, but he was still missing his left hand and his glasses. So
he can't see.
He can't see.
And he can only do things with one hand.
Yes.
And we don't know if he can really do anything with that hand, because it had to be surgically reattached, right?
Right.
So maybe they didn't. I mean, technology is maybe they could get it so that it would work, but he's only one-handed then, and he can't see anything.
Yes. Now
he may be more mad now than he was. They could have just left him in the river.
Well, I think so, because he was found in 09. They went back to the series in 2014, and they lost in 5 games. But this is an interesting part. It says the KFC outlet where the statue once stood has since closed. The statue is now at the KFC headquarters in Yokohama. It is not viewable by the public. Only employees and special guests are permitted to gaze into the rescued Colonel's eyes.
Maybe the team should see if they can get it and bring it and put it inside their stadium as like an honor, and decorate it or whatever they need to do and pay honor to Harlan.
Yes.
And maybe that will get them on the good side of the Colonel, the KFC gods, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, and I went back to look just to see how they were doing, and it pulled up a score from a recent game, and they had lost 7-1. So I think the curse is still
the
there.
Curse is real.
It is real, but they need to gaze into the eyes of the Colonel.
They've got to bring gifts to the statue and things to appease the spirit
Harlan
of Colonel Sanders. Exactly.
Yes.
See, now you've got a good one. That makes what I found kind of lame.
Let's hear it, though. We'll be the judge.
No one has ever thrown a no-hitter on their birthday.
Oh.
No pitcher ever has thrown a no-hitter on their birthday.
I guess
now, I could say it again, but it's not going to change it. Maybe there's some sort of a curse on pitchers on their birthday tonight. Maybe the Harlan Sanders curse also covers pitchers on their birthdays.
It could, or maybe they're born during the off season, so that's never going to happen.
Maybe. Well, there is that. It's like me, you know. I'm never, and you. There's never going to be a baseball game on our birthday. Actually, you could have a spring training game.
Right. Possibly, yes. All right. Well, I will see you and raise you with this one, that MLB umpires are required by rule to wear only black underwear in case they split their pants.
That way they don't have to run in and change.
Well, they can keep going because no one's going to know.
Well, that would be like, wasn't it Grandpa Barnes who said about his line about depends? You can pee your pants and keep on going, or something to that effect.
Yeah.
So with them, they can split their pants. They don't have to stop.
Keep on calling balls and strikes.
They just, all right. And yet another one. So see, you've got the good ones. I apparently didn't understand this assignment. Mark Lemke of the Atlanta Braves, part of the championship team, the 95 Braves that won the World Series, went his whole career without ever being hit by a pitch.
Wow.
His whole career.
How did he do that?
And he played from 88 to 98. I don't know. He's just good at getting out of the way, apparently.
I guess so. Unlike, you think of like Justin Turner, you know, he's really in there. It's always close with him because of his stance. And then sometimes those bad things happen, you know, when he broke his wrist. So maybe they all need to take a lesson on how not to do, especially for 10 years. That's crazy.
That's pretty good. I would have thought that maybe if he had a 5-year career or just short career, but he was around, played with the Braves and the Red Sox.
All right. In 1957, Richie Ashburn fouled off a ball and hit a spectator, breaking her nose. A few minutes later, he fouled off another ball and hit the same spectator while she was being carried off on a stretcher.
Oh, wow. Teammate of Eddie Waitkiss.
Yes.
Wow, that's
I hate
that's
laugh.
like lightning strikes twice in the same place.
Poor
and
girl.
she was being carried off, so
woman.
she wasn't even in the exact same place.
No.
What did Richie Ashburn have against this lady?
I don't know. But whatever it was, I don't think I'd go to any games where he was playing.
Right. I'm pretty sure she was probably pretty shaken up and probably a little skittish about going to any game.
Yeah.
You probably like anytime she's probably like that person, like later in life, you were out, the kids were out on her street playing ball, not even close to her. And she's like, get that ball away from me.
Get off my lawn. Right. But she had good reason.
Well, there was PTSD right there. Jeez.
Yeah. And I do, you don't want to laugh because obviously the woman was in pain, but to think that it happened. Right.
It's laughable.
It is.
Actually, even when it happened, I would have been laughing because what are the odds? That's the day that you're like, I wish I would have put a side bet on this, one lady getting hit twice by the same guy. Foul balls from the same player. That's awesome. See, that's a good one. I like that. All right. So in 1979, brothers Phil and Joe Niekro both won 21 games. In that year, Joe went 21-11. Phil went 21-20. That's 41 games, and Phil led the league in both wins and losses that year, the National League.
Wow. Now, which one had the file? Was a file involved?
It was a file. It wasn't that year, but
No.
I think that was Phil.
I think it was Phil. I know it was one of those Negro brothers. Didn't it fall out of his back pocket? Or?
Well, it didn't necessarily fall out. He kind of pulled it and kind of like tried to toss it off to the side.
Right.
So he's trying to be smooth about it, and it didn't work.
Yeah. He got caught. All right, I have. This is going back.
It was Joe. It was Joe, not Phil. It was Joe Negro.
Okay. Yeah. I think Joe of Phil and Joe. Oh, Joe was always a little more shady to me.
Yeah, Phil seemed like he was a little more on the up and up. When you saw him, he looked like he was a little more of an upstanding citizen, whereas Joe was definitely the shady one. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, he had some speeding tickets.
Yeah, he might have been. He's the guy who, like, before he, like, somebody turn away from the register, he'd look around real quick and then grab some cash out of it, put it in his pocket. Whereas Phil, that's Joe, would have done that. Phil would have been guarding it or would have closed it because he didn't want, somebody else to grab something.
Right. Yeah, that I don't know why, but as a kid I always had that Phil was the good, it's like the good angel, the angel and the devil on your shoulders. Yeah. That's all right. Babe Ruth wore a cabbage leaf under his cap to keep his head cool, and he changed it every 2 innings.
Wow, cabbage leaves will keep your head cool for 2 full innings?
Yeah, and the leaf, the way a cabbage leaf is, it's pretty broad, so it fit perfect on your head, and nobody knows.
Pictures of that, I wonder?
I don't know. I will have to look.
Would have probably seen that by now if there was. But.
Well, and again, we could go back. Is it baseball history or baseball lore? Now, from everything I've seen, or not seen, everything I've read, it seems to be, this is something he really did. But maybe that's something I'll have to look for a picture. And if I find a picture, I will be sure to put it on our website, siblingrivalrybb.com.
That one seems reasonable because players have done things like that in the past. The stories of taking a pair of shoes off, that one I think is more legend than that. But Richie Hebner, who played for the Pirates for years, cut out and his little toes would hang out of his cleats because the shoes weren't wide enough. His feet were so wide that he had to do that so that way he could be comfortable. So, there's things like that. Players do weird things in order to find that comfortable to help them for whatever reason, whatever it is the cause. Here's a good one. 1992, the Blue Jays, who were also the world champions that year, went the entire year without being swept in a series.
Wow, that is quite a distinction.
The last time it happened before then, it was 49 years earlier by the 1943 St. Louis Cardinals.
Wow.
So in almost 50 years, no team had gone without losing or being swept in a series. They may have lost a series, but they were never swept.
All right. 1963, Gaylord Perry's manager, Alvin Dark, is said to have joked, "They'll land a man on the moon before he hits a home run." Interestingly, 1 hour after Apollo 11 landed, he did in fact hit a home run.
Yes, he did. Gaylord Perry. Vinny Castilla in 1996 and 1997, member of the Rockies, batted .304 with 40 home runs and 113 RBIs. That's in both seasons. Exact same line. .304, 40 home runs, and 113 RBIs. I mean, there were other differences in how many hits and things like that, but in 96, he played 160 games, and in 97, he played 159.
Mm-hmm. So I want to just clarify, just in case when people, and I say in 1963 that Gaylord Perry's manager joked, he joked about that in 1963. It took him until 1969 to actually just make sure people didn't, yes, I know when the Apollo 11 landed, it was not in 1963. But it took him, 6 years
But they did land a man on the moon.
Yes.
So it came true.
Yes.
Did you know that Minnie Minoso played a long time for the Chicago White Sox? I remember getting his card in like the later years, and he looked old.
Yeah.
On those cards. He started in 1949. His first game was April of 1949 versus the St. Louis Browns.
Wow.
A team that didn't exist when he played his last game versus the Angels on October 5th, 1980.
Holy cow.
So he played like 5 decades, over 5 decades he played.
Man, no wonder he looked old on the card.
Right, exactly.
Man, the average lifespan of a Major League Baseball is 7 pitches. That's it. That's what I got.
See, you were doing so well.
Well, I wanted to make you feel...
So you went and you found something...
mundane.
Kind of... Is it really? So 7 pitches... It's weird because I was watching like... an older one. I think they were showing like one of the 70s, like the Red Sox Reds 75 series. But I've seen other things, older players, when they were done, when the pitcher threw the third, if it was a strikeout on the third out, they just roll the ball back. They don't do that anymore. Or like, remember Pete Rose, if he made the final out, he would like bounce the ball and then just drop it off at the pitcher's mound and they would go on. Now you don't see any of that. So it's even strange to think that it lasts 7. Now it seems like every pitch is a different ball.
Yeah, so maybe it's more like 2 pitches.
It depends on when that stat was.
Right.
Because everything that I found, I looked at it and then I went back and double checked because I had found one that said that since 1991, the Indians had no players go to salary arbitration. But then I realized that stat was something, or that line was from like 6 years ago. And since then there's been 3 or 4. So they went for a fair amount of time from 91 till whenever, but that's no longer true. So some of those things, it's like, well, maybe at the time.
Yeah, I think this probably is an older stat because you do think about it. All those, there's sometimes, seems like every pitch they're asking for a new ball. It's got a scuff on it.
I have 2 more.
Okay, and I have 1.
Mark McGwire, 70 home runs in the 98 season, combined flew 29,598 feet, which means his home runs combined flew over top of Mount Everest.
Wow, that's impressive.
29,598 feet.
It reminds me, not just climbing a mountain. My husband Bill and I, we went to Alaska last year for our anniversary, and we live at 7,000 feet. So we're in Alaska, and we're just trekking everywhere, and we're like, we totally, base camp for Denali is less than, I can't remember what the park ranger said off the top of my head, but it was probably, I think, where we are right now. Like base camp is 7,000 feet. And we're like, we could totally do it. We could totally climb that mountain. Not really, because we know we can't, but maybe we could if we got in shape. But at that moment, because we were delusional and we were walking around Talkeetna thinking, we could totally do it. We could totally get to Denali because base camp is our house.
Right. We walk at that elevation every day.
Exactly.
That's what we live at.
It was an exciting thought at the time. And then we came home and we're like, yeah, that's okay.
Can't even climb the hill just down the street from my house, let alone.
Right. So, and maybe this is the reason why I'm not going to climb Denali. Hot dogs are associated with baseball, of course. And during MLB games, about 25 million hot dogs and over 5 million sausages are sold every year. So those hot dogs are enough to stretch from Wrigley Field to Dodger Stadium. So from Route 66, hot dogs.
And remember, you go through St. Louis, Joplin, Missouri. Oklahoma City looks mighty pretty. Don't forget, you're going to see Amarillo and Gallup, New Mexico. Flagstaff, Arizona. See, you did it, didn't you? You forgot Winona.
Kingman, probably, yes.
Barstow,
Kingman, you can't forget that.
San Bernardino.
Yeah.
You can't forget San Bernardino.
No, never.
You went to elementary school there.
I did, Cole Elementary.
Back when that part of San Bernardino, that part of town, which is called Highland, was part of the city of San Bernardino. Now Highland is its own city. Has been for many, many years, but
yeah. Yep.
So there you go.
Elementary.
All right. So I have one more. If you take away Hank Aaron's 755 home run from his hit total, he still has 3,016 hits, which is good for 30th all time. And that'll do it for this week's Sibling Rivalry Baseball podcast.
Remember, you can find us on our website, siblingrivalrybb.com, and on Facebook and Instagram at Sibling Rivalry BB.
We're also on Twitter at Sibling Rivalry BB without the A. Email us, show@siblingrivalrybb.com. We'd love to hear what you think, so subscribe and rate us wherever you listen to our podcast.
Join us next week as the filibuster continues.
And we step up our efforts to find Josh Fields.
You're out!